Hello, Pisces Risings. I hope you are having, or you had an incredible March. This is your monthly zodiac reading for the month of April 2025. I'm still getting confused on the year 2025. As always, in case this reading doesn't resonate with you, please check your sun or your moon because that may be the area of your chart that is being activated the most by the transits this month. So, as always, we're going to pull an overall energy theme for the month. We're going to pull tarot for each week. We're going to clarify that with more tarot, as well as wrap it up with some additional oracle guidance. So let's see what Pisces needs to know for the month of April. The Rainbow Prince, compensation, perseverance. This is number 26. I don't know if I've ever pulled that card, but it's very pretty. It's a very, very pretty card. So 2 is about choices and consequences. It's relationships, it's balance and harmony. 6 is also about balance and harmony, and you put them together and you get 8, which is abundance and self-attainment and growth. So it could be that your perseverance and your the choices that you've been making, maybe the very hopeful choices that you've been making, have actually been paying off, right? Compensation means reward, really having things pay off as far as personal attainment goes. So that's really lovely. Here, let's go ahead and get the tarot for each week, and then we will go over the astrological transits. Here in the first week, the Ace of Swords in reverse. Aces represent new beginnings or new opportunities, and Swords is the mind, thoughts, ideas, and communication. And when this is in reverse, it can represent that there's a lack of clarity, there are no new ideas, or there's a struggle to communicate. There's a lack of communication happening. Here in the second week, the Four of Swords in reverse. So the Four of Swords in reverse can kind of represent feeling a sense of burnout, like trying and nothing actually happening, and then feeling a sense of burnout. Or it can represent that clarity has been received, or acceptance has kind of come into play, and now you can move forward. Here in the third week, the Knight of Cups. Knights are the action takers of the tarot, and cups represent our internal experience. They represent our emotions. So this could be taking action towards love, towards hope, towards healing and inner peace, or just ultimate emotional fulfillment in whatever way that looks like for you. Here in the fourth week, the King of Swords in reverse. So you guys are really struggling with the mind this month. Really struggling with maybe your mental health. And that's okay. But the King of Swords in reverse can represent struggles with anxiety, depression, and mental health. It can also represent that he's really struggling with overthinking and overanalyzation. Or it could be that there's someone in your life, or even you, who has been very careless with their words and may even be using words and intellect as a form of manipulation in some way. Here in this first week, we've got Venus retrograde, having a very harmonious conversation with the North Node and Saturn. Saturn represents restrictions, boundaries, and time. And the North Node in your sign is all about, collectively, the energy is moving towards surrender. It's moving towards unconditional love. It's moving towards compassion and empathy. But Venus retrograde is having us reevaluate our values. So the restrictions and the boundaries that we feel with Venus or with Saturn is causing us to really reevaluate our boundaries, and can we continue to persevere, go towards our dreams, go towards those communications of love, that empathy, that compassion, that surrender, in spite of feeling restricted. Can we continue to do that? Here in the second week, we've got Mercury going direct within your sign. So Mercury went retrograde within the sign of Aries and is now retrograded back into your sign. And it's now going to go direct. Even though it's gone direct, the energy is still, Mercury's still not feeling like himself. He doesn't really flow real well in your sign anyway. So he's not feeling very well still. But this can allow us to have a sense of clarity so that we can move forward. It could also represent that week. We also have the sun making a conjunction or sitting next to Chiron in Aries. Chiron is the wounded healer, and a lot of us are experiencing wounds with our sense of self. And so the sun could potentially be illuminating that, but illuminating that in a way that provides healing and acceptance. Here in the third week, this is the week that is the most activated. We start the week off literally on a Sunday on the 13th with a full moon within the sign of Libra. And for you guys, Libra sits in your 8th house. So this is the house, this is like the red light district of the zodiac. This is the area of your chart that represents things like sex, death, inheritance, taxes, the occult. Overall, I think about energetic inheritance because this is considered a karmic house. So when we think about a karmic house, we think about things that we inherited karmically. And if we're looking at inheritances, it's typically somewhere around generational wounds, right? Ways of being, ways of thinking, ways of moving in the world that we've somehow inherited from our family or past lifetimes. But for you guys, the full moon in Libra, the full moon is a buildup and a culmination. And this energy is illuminating where you need to be taking action. It feels like towards your own healing, considering where it's placed. Considering where it's placed, it could be your own healing or even towards things like acceptance and compassion for people around you. People who have maybe accidentally hurt you, have done things that maybe you've had a hard time forgiving them for, but moving into a place of acceptance and compassion and really taking action towards that. Now we also have on the 16th, we've got Mercury moving into the sign of Aries. So the planet of thoughts, ideas, communication is moving out of the very flowy sign, your sign, and moving into the very bold and action-oriented sign of Aries. However, it's going to be sitting next to Neptune, your ruling planet. So we want to be mindful that we're taking action on thoughts and ideas that are rooted in reality and not necessarily on illusion or what we perceive things to be. We also have Mars moving into the sign of Leo, so the planet of action, aggression, war, violence, desire, and even physical exertion is moving into the sign of Leo. And this is your 6th house. Leo rules your house of health and work habits. So it might be that you get back into working out. You're like, I really feel good when I work out. I feel good about myself. It boosts my self-confidence. I'm going to work towards that. It really could be something that simple. And then on the 19th, we've got Taurus season. Anytime the sun moves into a new season, those themes and qualities of that energy begin to take center stage. And within the sign of Taurus, this is actually going to be like grounded, practical, and slow moving energy, which could probably feel like a reprieve considering how March went. Here in the last week, like I said, the King of Swords, this is when we experience, or the King of Swords in reverse, this is when we experience the new moon in Taurus. For you guys, Taurus sits in your 3rd house of thinking and communication. So it could be that you're overthinking how you're thinking. You're overthinking how you're thinking. And like I said earlier, it could be that you guys may just be struggling with being in your mind too much, struggling with anxiety, or even struggling with, like I said, just overthinking and overanalyzing things. But the King of Swords with the new moon in Taurus, the new moon is an opportunity to set intentions for how you want to approach this. So if you're struggling with overthinking, if you're struggling with maybe brain fog, since this is a third house of learning and education, if you're struggling with that, maybe set intentions on what helps provide you a sense of focus every day. Okay? Let's get some clarifying energy. And it could be with the rainbow prince here. Like I see the rainbow, and rainbows represent hope. You guys actually rule over rainbows. And so it makes me feel hopeful, like this theme of perseverance, especially with Saturn still being in your sign. Saturn is rules and restrictions and boundaries and where we feel limited, right? It's where we feel limited. And so it's almost like the rainbow prince is like, look, maintain a sense of hope. Because yes, things feel very sluggish right now, but they're going to pay off in the long run. Saturn rewards invested time. Okay? So keep in mind that if you're feeling that way over over April, it's okay. And that, we focus on the things that we can control. Here, the Ace of Swords in reverse, the Seven of Pentacles, maybe feeling like you're like, I'm not getting any ideas and I feel like I'm just wasting my time. And the Queen of Wands. So yeah, so for some of you, if this is in regard, like if you're struggling in a relationship right now, Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde can do that. If you feel like there's just no communication happening, and it could bring about thoughts of like, I'm just done wasting my time. I am done wasting my time on this. And it's like almost allowing you to step into this space of confidence. Know who you are, know what you're worth, and be perfectly fine with someone not communicating with you. Now, if there is this doubt, like if it's not in regards to a relationship, but overall a sense of doubt, this concern of a lack of clarity in communication, because remember, Mercury is still retrograde at this point. He's still retrograde. So miscommunication and a lack of clarity can really be hard to come by at the moment. And you could be like, I just feel like I'm wasting my time. The Queen of Wands is there to remind you of who you are. This is who you are. I am extremely confident in my ability to do what it is that I want to do. And I'm not going to let this doubt drown that out. I'm not going to let that happen. So we're not doing that. So it looks as if even though you're struggling with communication, or maybe it's like you're hesitant to communicate, do what the Queen of Wands would do and reach out first. Conquer that fear and stand true to your own self-confidence when it comes to these restrictions and challenges that you're facing here in the first week. Here in the second week, the Four of Swords in reverse, the Wheel moving forward, and the Ten of Pentacles. The Ten of Pentacles. You're like, you know what? I'm accepting what is, and I'm going to allow this to move forward anyway. It actually, you know what? Radical acceptance helps me move forward because I'm stepping into the space of surrender. And as a result, it's allowing me, and here we've got two tens. I just wanted to point that out, two tens, which represents the ending to a completion. It's like the final chapter in a book. It's like the heroine has gone through her journey. The hero has gone on their hero's journey, and it's the final chapter where things are like, you know what? Life is good. I've overcame these challenges. I've leveled up in who I am, and now I have received the necessary abundance, that I've received that personal attainment that I didn't have before. So that's really, really lovely. Feeling that sense of clarity and purpose and allowing that to help the energy move forward can result in feeling very confident in your ability to invest your time wisely. Here in the third week, the Knight of Cups, the Eight of Wands, quick decisions, feeling really good and confident about the choices that you're making, and the Hanged Man. Interesting, because the Hanged Man can represent taking a pause, whereas these two energies here represent taking action. So with the Knight of Cups, you may be inclined to take action towards, like I said, your healing, or like it's almost like the Knight of Cups feels more like desire, like an urge, like your intuition is like, hey, we need to go this direction. And the Eight of Wands is like, yeah, let's go. It's the Eight of Wands is much more impulsive, and it's like a spur to action. Whereas the Hanged Man is like, this new perspective is needed, but I'm actually wondering if you're able to make these quick decisions and you're able to move in a direction that feels more fulfilling because you've gained a sense of you've gained this new perspective here with the Four of Swords. I think that's more or less what's happening. The full moon in Libra is allowing you to see this new perspective, maybe even to take action towards, like I said, compassion and healing, and really able to make those quick decisions, like really spurring into action. So if, for example, there's somebody in your life that maybe you've had a hard time forgiving, or maybe there's a little bit of resentment built up and you're like, you know what, I'm just done with that. I have this new perspective and I really want to move forward with that. So I'm going to text this person. Something as simple as that can be how this energy manifests and plays out. But overall, there's this desire to move forward in a more loving and a compassionate way. And you're taking immediate action on that. And that action, you feel more confident in that action because of a new perspective that's been gained with the Hanged Man. Here in the last week, the King of Swords in reverse, the Ten of Swords, something is done. And the Chariot, you've got some major arcana. 1, 2, 3, and you've got another 10 here. So this is a whole month of kind of leveling up. Like I said, 2 and 6 put together is 8. 8 is about self-attainment. And 8 here, we have an 8 here. The full moon in Libra sitting in your 8th house. So this is kind of like a karmic leveling up for you this month. And it looks like it's going to play out beautifully, right? And it could be that the King of Swords is, because the Ten of Swords, when it's in reverse, it's like something is done. It's done. Like you have closed the chapter, like you've closed that book and you've put it back on the shelf. That's how done with it you are. And in doing so, it allows you to take charge of what it is that you want. It allows you to move forward in a way that's in alignment with who it is that you want to be. And what's tricky about this is that the King of Swords is in reverse here, though. He's the main energy, which represents overthinking and overanalyzing and having a really hard time seeing the overall vision. Okay? It could be that you're overthinking something that potentially needs closure. Like you haven't quite maybe somehow received the closure that you were looking for with the Ten of Swords. Like you're hanging on to that wound. You're hanging on to that conversation. You're hanging on to the what ifs, and you're overthinking it and you're overanalyzing it. And it could be like you're wanting to take control. You're wanting to take control, but the mind right here seems to be interfering a little bit with that. So let's see. And truthfully, if this is your third house of communication, it could be that, like I said, somebody in your life is using their words and their intellect to kind of manipulate you a little bit. And you essentially put your foot down and be like, no, that's unacceptable. And we are not doing that. And it allows you to take the control. It allows you to take the reins of what's happening in that experience, because Taurus is sitting in your third house of communication. And we learn how to communicate within our earliest experiences. So for some of you, you could be dealing with someone who is, it doesn't feel intentionally manipulative, but you never know. That didn't break even. Someone who's a little bit manipulative, and as a result, you have to really put your foot down and draw that line in the sand. Let's see. What additional guidance can we give Pisces energy? Hold your vision. Hold on to your confidence, because even though you're like, I'm not getting any new ideas, and I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels, the Queen of Wands is to be like, no, we're holding true to what it is. We're persevering, because that's what we do. We're persevering. And we're going to hold that vision, and we're going to keep working towards what it is that we need, because we know that eventually we're going to hit a breakthrough, which is what happens. Nothing will come of this situation. Interesting. And it could be that in this liminal space, like I said, this is like the final chapter in the book, that you're in this space of where the book has now, you're like reading the last few paragraphs of the book before you close the book, before you kind of process and make these decisions. You're feeling very comfortable, very confident. You feel like the energy is now moving in your favor with the Wheel of Fortune, and the Four of Swords is allowing you that acceptance, right? So it kind of feels like you're in this liminal space here in the second week, where it's more about just processing and focusing on the present moment. Here in the third week, surrender to the divine, full moon. Having that perspective and being like, you know what, I'm going to take action on this, and whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to move forward with compassion, with healing, with empathy, with love, and whatever happens, happens. A win-win outcome in the forecast, full moon in Libra. Right? Because so the Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde can bring about reviews, reflections. It can bring people from the past, and it can also just bring about miscommunications and a need to reflect and realign personal values. And that can create some tension within us and with others. However, if we are able to stand true to what it is we believe in, we are able to approach situations with compassion and empathy and acceptance and understanding, and we're able to stand up for ourselves and stay true to our boundaries, we can actually feel very empowered, and we can ultimately achieve that balanced win-win outcome. So I truly hope this reading helped. I hope you guys have an incredible month, and we will see you next time.